Hi everyone, welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review, part of the 14.3 cycle. And it's a slightly funky topic today. This is bringing some pieces of our natural language understanding stack that is usually done in the cloud to be local. It's been a long road, but we have some cases where hopefully, can't I actually run things here?
You
Can I
can.
run? So, yeah, okay.
If you're in a prototype build, any control equal will trigger this. I tried to give sort of a
Okay, all right.
roadmap to where we're going. Yeah,
Was that local?
it was, and you know that by virtue of the new appearance element,
Which is the wolf,
which
woofity
is
woof.
for now the wolf.
The wolf is a very weird appearance element to represent that, but it was nice and zippy. Um,
So it was
okay,
zippy because perhaps I'll give a little bit of context, or maybe you know this
okay,
already.
that wasn't local.
Correct, because there's no wolf, and because it took a little longer.
It's not. It wasn't local because there's no wolf. Yes, it's.
Well, wait,
If
Lou
and
is
only
answering how
if.
you know
Yes, I
that
know.
it's
I'm
not local.
answering how I know.
How I know versus how you know. Right. And it's fast because the front end actually spawned a dedicated kernel for this local parser, which does not launch quickly. I'm sorry, the kernel launches quickly, but the local parser takes a bit to warm up.
Okay, how big is how much memory is this taking?
Jeremy?
I would guess around a gig in that auxiliary process.
I'm much less concerned about the memory than I'm concerned about the startup time. But as we will see in this review, various things have been done to accommodate startup time issues.
I mean, it's not actually this. It's asynchronous, right?
Exactly.
Doesn't
That's
actually
what
affect the
John
actual
did. Yep.
startup time.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you happen to hit a control equals in the first 15 seconds of your session, then there might be trouble.
Right. That's the last bullet in that second section that you have open.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let me understand a couple of things. So once we have this, things like the notebook assistant can use it, correct?
They can. I haven't attached this to any second arguments to the Wolfram Alpha function, but I intend to do that. And then anyone, including the notebook assistant, can call those, sure.
Okay.
Or they can call the underlying, the answer is yes. It's just a matter of how we package it up.
Okay. Okay, so give me a sense then of what works with the local parser.
Jeremy?
Jeremy, please.
It's similar to the local semantic interpretation where most math should work. And then you can see with that Eiffel Tower example, there's words data. And then
Okay, but
other
that's not
domains.
useful, right? Because I mean, if I
Right.
say that, if this will be wrong, right?
That was one of the things to talk to
Yeah,
you about.
that's no
Yes,
good. It's
exactly.
just no good. I mean, it's like can't possibly work this way. So which tables are actually in that 1 GB?
It's as I said, it's the math stuff. Oh, and the word stuff, and Noriko can feel free to chime in about the things that I'm not
Why is the
thinking
word
of.
stuff useful?
Is the quantity stuff considered part of the word of math stuff? Because I would think,
Yes.
okay.
Can't imagine words are that useful.
No.
Mm.
They're almost always a bad idea. And by the way, this font is really bad. Really, we really need to fix this. And the spacing also for units is really bad. Right, guys?
Different set of people.
And that's true outside of control equal as well, right? You're talking generally about units.
Yes, I'm talking generally about that. Well, it's really nice to see this being so fast. can I confuse it? Will I be upset about something here? Do you know? Has somebody run tests?
I don't know of anyone who has run tests.
Okay, so we'll need those tests, and that's something for Alan and his team, I think, because the question is what were disambiguations that will not be picked up correctly?
I would imagine M on its own would probably, who knows, will that be for S?
Well, that's interesting.
And just to drive the point home, that wolf icon is a button which you can click to say, I want to throw away the local parse and go off and get the real full strength parse from the server.
Okay, that's
Which
a
I would
very
never
weird
have
button.
guessed from
I
a
would never
Wolfram.
have guessed that. No.
Well, if you had read the tooltip, perhaps you would have learned it.
Good luck. Okay, but seriously, we need to figure out other things which are, which are masquerade as units or whatever else. Under like Eiffel Tower being a word is just no good, obviously. How much of that is there here? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, so for example, New York obviously wasn't an example because you tried it and it went to the server.
What the hell was that? Okay, that is very questionable. Okay. So there I found one.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad.
What
That's
was
not
the first
useful.
parse? I can't.
Mega amperes.
I see.
Which, if you kind of expect if you knock out a bunch of corpuses to look up into, and
Yeah,
you
I
leave
know.
basically quantities.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, it's one thing if it was 3 MA. If we say MA 01, I don't know what it is, 6242. Oh, Christ. Well, that's really weird. That was a stupid parse to begin with. I mean, that should have parsed to some location, right? A zip code. Am I making sense?
Right, but again, we don't have the zip code data.
No, I don't care
But,
about that.
yeah.
I asked it to go to full Wolfram Alpha and it didn't do the right thing.
Oh, I see. I wonder.
So that's just a
Did you
bug.
was it just 1642? Did you type?
No,
No, it was
Oh, there was I missed the.
01642. So
Okay.
it also rearranged. But I'm trying to remember my Massachusetts zip codes, but you would know that that's a real
I
zip
don't know
code.
if that's actually a real zip code.
Because I think that there could be validation where if you give it a Connecticut or a Tennessee zip code with Massachusetts, then it's not going to do the zip code.
Oh, well, maybe it worked. I mean, that worked there just fine.
Oh, 6412 is Connecticut.
I think that's what I don't know. I don't know my zip codes here. Well, whatever. I don't know. Give me somebody find a zip code from something. Gosh, what is one that I don't? I'm embarrassed to say
I'm
this,
remembering
but I know
02134. Ah, okay.
Yeah, well, I think there's a bug there, but okay.
So it sounds like there's a real question about, with these limitations, is this really a feature that we want to be pushing?
Well, I think it is for things like units. I mean, it is. There are cases where it's pretty clearly okay. Like it starts with a number. I mean, we need some kind of filter here. Am I making sense? Don't break things that are working. I said this years ago with this whole, discussion about this feature,
Yes, yes.
right? So, like, if it starts with a number, it's a reasonable thing to try. I mean, that would be a good place to start. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how well we can be sure it's math. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
If we can be sure, then I guess that's okay too. Although I think it's less useful. I'm not sure where people will specifically use that.
Yeah, that was going to be my question is, do we have any sense of how much people actually use Ctrl equal for math?
I don't think very much. I think they'll use Wolfram Alpha if they don't want to type, syntax.
I mean, I'm certainly skeptical, but I have no data to point to.
Yeah. Well, we could look at logs. But look, I think the one that's pretty safe is it starts with a number. Am I making sense? I mean, get a heuristic for, is it reasonably, Jeremy Michelson, you should be able to do this,
Mhm.
right? Get a heuristic for it is a unit.
Mhm.
Okay, does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Right, so that's what we should go for. And I'm not convinced that anything else, unless we could actually get, like places and things like this, unless we actually feel confident about some of these other things, but we cannot have this kind of screw up. Just can't have that.
Yep. Yep.
Personally, I would take the word data out. I don't think it's ever useful.
Okay.
I'm curious, does the loading of word data add significantly to the startup time?
Can't imagine it.
No, I imagine it does. I imagine that that's a big
So-
chunk of it. But then the other thing is that when we do add more domains and such, I expect that we need the word data, right? We might not want the final thing to be a word, but we need the words there to feed into the grammar rules and such.
I don't know how that works. So yeah, maybe.
Right,
This is what
although
I've been
I would
afraid
say-
of for years about this functionality.
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe we don't worry about such things, but not all units will come with numbers. Like people might do speed of light, which obviously doesn't start with a number, but they probably do want that to go to C.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Because I mean, the fact if that goes, the worst case is it's going to go off to the parser, which doesn't take very long anyway. See what I'm saying? It's just nice if these things come back at full typing speed. It's a convenience, okay? I don't know that it's worth a 1 gigabyte, 15-second startup thing. I don't know whether it's worth it at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely worth it if you're parsing, a giant tabular thing, and I hope we're installing it in the importer for tabular, are we?
No, not yet
Oh,
anyway.
for God's sake. Well, that's
Well-
where it
well-
needs to go. If you've got 100,000 lines of input that have units on them or place names or whatever else, I mean, that's the thing we also had from the work that Tally did a long time ago. These things that tried to figure out, is it places, is it animals, is it units, is it dates, what is it, right? Do we still have that capability?
I don't think that capability was ever that great to begin with. But of course, tabular is first of all, tabular is using other mechanisms to deal with units, right? It's using arrow for import, etc. I suppose
Well,
if
it's
you're
not going to work for units. It's not going to work for all the units that we have, as we well know.
but also given that this is set up to run in its own separate kernel, right? I mean, this is not going to be a way to speed up kernel. The tabular, I mean, once it's merged, tabular could use the underlying utilities to perhaps speed things up.
Well, I'm not why the fact that it's running a separate kernel. Why does that not allow you to use this to speed up tabular?
Because how are the two kernels going to talk to each other?
So
Well, however
the kernel, right, the front end manages communication with this kernel. So you ask the front end a particular idiomatic thing, you know,
Right. So for
okay,
every
so it would have
right.
to be
So for
kernel to
every
kernel.
right. So for every call, for every row, you're going to send a packet.
No, that's stupid.
Exactly.
Right. But so, well, so maybe this architecture is just wrong. I mean, I don't
And we
understand
should
why
be
this
able to
isn't
build a we should be able to build a listable version of it, but right, those are exactly the concerns.
well, the fact you're sending it to a separate process rather than even a library is kind of funky. And why exactly is this going from the front end to that kernel rather than through the main kernel to that kernel?
Because this
There's a
it has been
parser,
hooked
right.
up this control equals, which means you haven't entered the
It's
main loop
parse
yet.
time. Yeah. Okay.
Also, the front end, knows how to do this sort of thing. As far as the front end is concerned, this looks a lot like the system kernel.
Right. So with this, how many kernels are there per front end process? 3, 4?
Well, ones that are started by default in the prototype build is 3, including local. So local, system, and then I forget what we called this one, but the one for the local parse.
So Stephen, this is a usage that's perhaps less controversial, right? Control equal gets context sensitive information. It knows that if you're in the second argument of quantity, it can restrict its query to just the quantity domain.
I understand. I don't think it's as useful. I think people are going to want to type units with, 2.7, meters or something. Okay. Again, let me remind you, what we need to do is not give wrong answers. If we don't give an answer and have to go to the, server to get an answer, that's fine. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Right? We need to, with very, very, very high accuracy, never give an incomplete answer. So WhatsApp, we need some testing protocol that tries to nail that. And we should start with some of these heuristics, like, does it start with a number? Then it's probably a unit. I mean, the units is a case we know that is useful. Is there any other case where we feel confident? We've been through this before for several years. I'm going to ask the question again. Is there any other place we feel confident? That sounds like a no.
I mean, the two, right. So I would say that for my use, the two most common cases for control equals is maybe units. If it's not a unit I use regularly, otherwise I'll just type it in from scratch. Or, various, various entities named either financial or geographic.
Yeah. Yeah, but those are the full. I mean, I don't know how big those tables are, and those are full parser things.
Yeah.
Right? And so, for example, for places, so you're saying we have that table. Is that true? Jeremy, can you speak
Not
to that,
yet,
please?
not yet.
But then how did this work? Wait a minute, did any of these work? No. So basically we're dead in the water. Okay. What is this? I mean, this is crazy, if I might say so. A gigabyte to do units? That doesn't make any sense. I don't understand this.
Well, how many units are there?
10,000.
I feel like it's more, but okay. So we have units. We have all of the different math functions. And I don't know. I don't know.
We
how
don't
big
want
data
words.
is.
Words were a bad idea.
Right,
Take
but
words out.
again, even if we're not going to allow the words to be a terminal parse, we still need them.
But units?
Yes.
I don't think so. Well, okay, you need to figure
What
that
if
out.
somebody types in FIVE space CM? Is that
I
why
don't
we
really
need?
care about that. I mean, it's
Well,
amusing, but it's not.
so there are two issues with words. One is the size and the overhead. The other is returning potentially unwanted word entity results. The second, of course, is easy to deal with. If it returns a word entity result, just reject it. If we need word parsing for other things to work correctly, then we can just fix the parses by rejecting all word entity results.
Yeah, fair enough. Rejecting and pushing to the server.
Exactly.
All right. Look. I think, okay, so point one, we clearly should combine whatever this behavior is with the check mark somehow. I don't know how that works. Maybe when you hover over the check mark, it provides you an alternative for, full parse or something.
By
Am
the
I
way,
making
Jeremy
sense?
Davis and even Noah has graced us from the
Yes.
UK. So thank you, Noah. So they may have opinions.
Yeah, I think this is the first time they're seeing this. So
Yeah, I'm not sure why that wasn't just a ... that opens to allow you to, remote parse.
If we even need that. I mean, look, assuming we're only doing safe parses, I think it should just be in the check mark. And the check mark should have a possibility in its hover of saying force a more serious parse.
Hang on, what does that mean in its hover? Are you suggesting that it sort of auto pops a menu?
That's what I'm suggesting, yes.
Oh,
That-
like a raft. Okay, I guess that feels weird to me, having like a
Yeah.
menu that sort of
Feels
I think
automatically
you're
pops.
trained to go there when you accept what it is and want to just convert it.
Well, yeah, but that should be the default action. Okay, how do we I just don't think we need 3 weird icons in this thing.
I
But how-
agree with that, but I think overloading the tick is not the way to go.
But how's it different than an interpretation that you're not quite happy with the result and you want to interpret it differently?
I see where there's a ...
Yeah. This felt like it was there for development
for
purposes,
God's
not
freaking
for
sake,
user.
Look at this. It's just stupid. Just stupid.
Right. Well, I guess it was to give you a.
Yeah, but I
It's
already
there for
said
two things.
ages ago that this was a
Let me
bad
finish my
idea.
Let me finish my sentence, Stephen. Right. I think the idea, whether or not it was a good idea, was to communicate. This isn't an assumptions issue. This is a local parse versus remote parse. Maybe
Yeah, good
that's
luck
not
on
a
anybody
useful. Maybe
understanding
that's
that.
not a useful
It's
distinction.
not
but
useful.
yeah, I think I'm tending to agree with Jeremy that I mean that literally this doesn't have to be distinguishable as a local parse at all.
Yeah.
All that we need to do is provide the ... which the result of the clicking of which might do something a little different.
Mhm.
But
Right.
that before you
Right,
click the ... it's indistinguishable. I think that's fine.
Right. Rather than offering different interpretations, it could say, look for additional interpretations.
But here, I see. So it says look for if it's local. Right. So in other words, we'd be offering, I mean, maybe in a case like this where we don't think they're alternates. By the way, does the local parser ever throw assumptions?
Yes.
Oh,
I
to the
think-
user?
It does.
We need to know
It
for
could.
sure.
So in the second argument of quantity, you know that it does.
Okay, well, give me an example,
And-
please.
Well, it uses assumptions, but that is the result from the local parser ever something with clash data?
So in the quantity case, Stephen, if you scroll down a bit, the quantity queries can return a quantity with an ambiguity list. That's where
I
that
see.
G menu comes from, so the
Yep.
example right there. That's how this is populated.
By the way, I'd argue that that should also be a ... This all
agree.
feels like the same thing, and then the pop-up is just slightly different. In this case, it's an action menu, I guess.
This is following the precedent of other context-sensitive queries that we have for the second argument of entity
Okay, but I don't
property.
understand. Why is this a menu like this? When, I mean, it would be lovely, maybe, if we turned this into a menu like that. Why isn't it?
Well, because we haven't done that level of review. I mean, I think that you know, Noah and Jeremy and I are all agreeing that that's what we should be doing. We should, you know, the top level thing, even with the hover, even the tooltip, you know, can be exactly the same as if you had assumptions. The only difference is what happens when you click on it.
Well, I think tooltip doesn't have got some. By the way, we've got that same stupid poetry left-hand side issue going on here. See that?
Yeah,
Yes.
that would be a Lou
There are lots of things
thing, I think.
that I'm intending to improve about this. This was at the bottom.
No, I understand,
Yeah,
but
okay.
you do know.
There's a new design
Lou,
spec for that
Yes.
particular pop-up, right?
Jeremy
That's-
has provided
Yeah.
me with a new thing, and I just haven't gotten to it
this
yet.
thing here. Oh God, what happened here?
It's just you're getting ahead of things. It's because of the fix, which is half in place and half out of place for the prototype build.
Fine.
But it's not, you know, it's not related except in the loosest, most general sense.
Okay, all right, fine. Okay, all right, okay.
But yeah, no, point being, I mean, I would claim even the tooltip, alternate interpretations, if you're clicking on it from a local parse, that's kind of what you're looking for, is you're saying, I wasn't satisfied with that. Let's do something else.
Yeah, all
the
right,
means by which it's doing so might be different, but
yeah, fair point. That's a fair point.
So, but given that Lou already has this design from Jeremy that he hasn't had a chance to implement yet for the existing stuff, and then we need to think about designing the new stuff. This doesn't feel to me like something that has time to bake for 14.3.
Sorry, which piece of what?
The what happens behind the clicking of the ...
I don't think there's any baking. I mean, it's just like it should just go, you know, get out of here and just go to the server.
Well, I mean, it.
Okay, what happens if when you go to the server, the primary parse changes?
I mean, it will produce some kind of pop-up which gives you, you know, an action or multiple actions depending on what's appropriate.
Okay, but I understand what
it's
I'm
just
asking.
working that pop-up out. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, okay, but there's a question here, which is, what if it changes the primary parse? Right? Usually with an assumptions thing, you're going to secondary parsers. Do you understand what I'm saying? If I click this, like here, if I had a ... and I click that, it's going to say, well, actually, the primary parse is building. So how does it do that? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I don't quite understand your question.
I don't
Okay,
either.
let me say it again.
It would almost want to overwrite the box, right? Because you're saying that would parse to a building. Right?
Yeah, isn't it the same as if you just click that wolf?
I mean,
Yes.
how is
what should the action be? Is it basically, okay, redo this entire process remotely, potentially replacing that entire thing and then opening a menu with the alternate?
That's what I think it probably should do. Yeah, which is what it is doing right now. So that's good, because then we have this code in there. It's doing it right now. Now, why is it putting this thing up here first? What the hell's this? It's never done that before. What is that?
It was thought to be the correct look in 14.2. Jeremy Davis has provided a new look for 14.3. I have not yet implemented it.
So in 14.2, if I press the ... I get something like this. Is that correct?
I believe that's true. For entities. The same is true of hovering over
Yes.
entities.
Yes.
Oh, no, hovering is different.
I understand that, but we did both.
Well, it seems wrong to me.
Well, nothing happens without your oversights.
I don't remember this. This seems wrong to me.
Now click the check mark and hover, and you'll see the entity behavior. This was the motivation.
Yeah, but that's okay. But the other one is wrong, I think.
I was going to say,
Certainly
it's not
much to
obvious to
emphasize.
me why.
Well, it's just obscure. Okay. Maybe
It's
maybe
less
with a different
emphasized
look.
in the new design, right? We've pushed it to the bottom and made it smaller. I think it's fixed
Oh,
in the
that
new
sounds
design.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
fine.
yeah. You know what? I'm remembering this new design now, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So that's getting implemented. Okay. All right. Okay. So
Right.
look,
And that's what I was talking about. Yes, it's going to get implemented, but Lou is the one who would do that, and it's been crowded out by the work that he's done so far, in hooking up the local parse. So we're to the point where we're going to have to prioritize some things.
well, this needs to get fixed. That looks terrible. Let's
And
fix it.
so and I'm okay with that, but what I'm suggesting is in doing that,
Okay, it's been 10 years we've been working on this local parser. Let's not push it again, if we can help it.
sorry, let's not, what do you mean push?
Let's not push it out another version again, if we can help it.
Then choose. I gave you two options and you said I want both.
Okay, but then we're going to have to probably kill the local parser project. Then it's done. We're done. We're giving up. I mean, it's pathetic that this is, we're so far into it. The only thing it can do is this units thing. We're not able to do anything else. It's producing all this stupid word stuff. Come on.
Well, look, I
was ready to kill this project a while ago.
I'm not going to speak for Jeremy's team. I'm just speaking for, what we're doing on the user interface side. And, we've been working diligently, and the user interface side.
All right, so I insist
we didn't put together
fixed.
the UX.
I can't believe this is very hard to fix. Let's fix it. Okay, whatever else we have time for, we have time for, but fix this.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay, now in terms of this design. Okay, point one, no nonsense. None of the stuff where it's producing things like this. Don't even consider it. I only
We've
want
already
things
decided that.
Okay, we only do things where we are certain we're not going to get garbage. And we need proper testing to make sure that there's no corner case where we're going to get garbage. Okay, throw out probably the math stuff. Throw out anything cutesy. We just want this simple case, which I cannot believe takes 1 gigabyte and 15 seconds of startup time to deal with. And then please, let's make sure that we have a way to hook this up. It's not going to be for this version, obviously, to Tabular, because that's a place it could really be used. And in terms of some of this other stuff, I mean, this is fine if we can do it reliably. But please, no nonsense here. Can this, Jeremy Michelson, can this be done reliably? Or are we going to get stupid stuff where we're thinking it's a place name or something here?
No,
this
we
will
know
only
that if
allow
it's a
units.
place name, then it's not a unit, so it's not allowed in the second argument of quantity.
Okay, so we really, really can nail that down.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and in fact, I think maybe G is a similar example, but certainly with S, which we saw parse to small lowercase letter S.
Yeah, right.
Which would presumably parse to second in this case. Now M might probably go to meter, although that one could potentially be other things that are abbreviated as M.
How did it not? I mean, this is clearly no good, right?
It's no
Because,
good.
what's that?
What's no
I mean,
good?
it did the right parse, but how can I know that it's seconds, that it's picked right now?
Ah, yes, there is a missing.
Yeah, there's a
Well,
missing piece of UX
Yeah.
there.
yeah, I mean that comes back to the same, dot business.
I would think so. I think it's got to be the same dot, 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 and I would think it's got to format the same as one of these other dot, dot, dots. Am I making sense? There's no reason. I mean, either this has got to become a menu or the other one has got to become like this.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and yeah, I agree that it melds into one of the existing cases, I think.
Well, so how hard is that to turn it into this?
One fundamental difference is that the template that we're seeing here, the assuming blah is a blah, use blah instead. Those templates actually come from the server in the cloud case.
Okay.
There's nothing in the local parser that provides those templates, so I'd have to recreate those templates.
Well, is that, Jeremy, does that make sense or not?
Well, couldn't you just
No,
say,
can Jeremy answer that question? Can you make such a template here or not? Or is there some reason why that doesn't make sense?
I'm not sure we can get the text. We can get the there is, right, we can make the ambiguity list, but the question is whether we can make it complete enough that it's literally just fill in the blanks.
Well, it's this one here.
Right, I understand, and I
It's
don't.
assuming that it's a unit, right? So
Yeah, so that right, and so I would think that we have. Well, the question is whether we have the data locally to know that the name is standard acceleration due to gravity.
okay, why don't you
That
check?
would be,
Why don't you check on that?
yeah. And I imagine we do
Obviously, we
from the
do. It's
hover.
right
Yep.
there.
Yeah,
Right there.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
I think you're
Yep.
just reformatting this.
Exactly. Yep.
Now, by the way, I don't hate this pull down. I think the other one could be a pull down as well, but they've got to be consistent.
Yeah, and the thing that
well,
the
the other
issue
one
with
can
the pull
have
down that
2A.
I have is if it's a fraction, if it's a quotient unit, then something like m/s, then there can be a ambiguity for the m and an ambiguity for the s. And so I don't know that we want the explosion in the pull down as opposed to an assumption for the m and an assumption for the s. Although in this case, I guess it was simpler because there was no way to get seconds of right ascension with
It's
the
also
meters or the
possible,
minutes.
Jeremy, that my code was throwing out all but the first ambiguity list here for exactly this.
Okay, why don't you guys look into that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, and then we can have a backstop, which is, other interpretations or something at the bottom of this that you can press. I guess.
For
Not
what
in
would
this
that
case
do?
with quantity, but
Oh,
gonna
right.
go to
Yes.
the server.
Yeah, the quantity, there is no server. There's, I mean, that was my claim in the first bullet, just above where you are. Jeremy can correct me if I'm wrong, Michelson.
Yeah, that's right. Or at least it's not fully exposed. We could make a server endpoint for it, but I'm not sure that we even need it.
No, I don't think we need it. Okay, so clearly these icons aren't right. That's not the right icon. If it's been
Yep.
disallowed, that's not the right icon.
That's what I thought we were going to talk about today.
Right? Not the right icon. So it needs to be a thing with a cross through it or something that indicates it's not. I mean, do we have any iconography for a parser?
Not that I'm
interpretation.
aware of. Maybe there's something for interpretation that I'm unaware of on the alpha
Well,
side.
we could just have an X there or something. I'm not sure having pink. Well, just having an X there. is probably the right thing to do. Does that make sense, guys?
Hang on. So that state is local parser disallowed. If the local parser is disallowed, then what happens? Does it try to go to the cloud?
Not in the quantity case, because there is no.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
There's nothing else, which is why we don't need this error state in the general control equal case. We only
Why
need
doesn't it go to the cloud in this case? I don't
because there's no
understand.
endpoint. There's no endpoint that gives the same thing that the local parse gives.
Well, I understand, but there's a thing that just gives whatever it would normally give in the cloud, which is fine. I mean,
Well, it would be useless, right? Because we know it
No.
has to be a unit.
No, but look, it's not useless. Look at this. Look at that. I do that. Okay, that's pretty useless. I agree.
Right, and if you select a unit, then you'll presumably get the same ambiguity list.
Except that's not a unit, that's a quantity.
Ah,
So you have quantity of 1 comma quantity of 1 comma grams or whatever that is.
A mess. But I mean, this is not a case where I would use it. Okay, just put a red X there. That's what I would say. But what was anybody else saying? I mean, you're out of luck in this case.
I mean, presumably you could, if you could put a link to like the checkbox in preferences, I suppose. Like
Yes,
if you wanted the X to do something on click,
yeah, that
and
would be
maybe
fine.
something in the
That would be
tooltip.
useful.
Yeah,
that would be useful. Or in the tooltip, say that the local parser has been disabled, and you can start it up there. And this one here, I would just have an icon that indicates that it's starting up or something. Retry. Circle to retry. And the tooltip says it's starting up. And the button retries. I'm making sense?
sounds reasonable to me.
But
Yeah.
for the first case, don't we know it's disabled before we generate that box? Couldn't we?
The disallowed state can be toggled on and off by the user.
But most cases, it's often you try to enable that box. Couldn't we prompt them before they type their G?
If it's disallowed and they enter a control equal in this place, then
Yeah.
yes, we could give some sort of kernel error message, some.
Well, no, I
something.
mean, it's not a kernel error message. It's a user interface thing because they're typing quantity and the thing goes, they do this. And why even bring that up? See what I'm saying?
It's like a little pop-up or something that says you can't.
Maybe. I tend to think that actually that having the box error is better than having sort of like a pop-up, especially if you've then got to click it.
But then there's a bunch of cleanup after the fact.
I mean,
I guess the X deletes
and try it
it,
again.
is what we're saying.
Well, I mean, I was thinking that the X could take you to preferences.
Sorry. Here, if the thing isn't ready, when you press Control equals, it could either say not ready, in here, it could say not ready, retry or something, or it could say disabled. When you press Control equals. If you were to try and evaluate this, there's this weird corner case where you toggled it, you typed this, you toggled, and then you typed something and hit enter.
Or you open a notebook full of these things in a session where the setting has changed.
Okay. I mean, these are corner cases. Let's make sure we have the rest of it understood first.
Right. So there's a question about how freeform evaluate inherits or not the behaviors we've been talking about. And this is another case where
this one here equals bracket.
This is another case where the local parser and the Wolfram alpha parser do different things. So if we fix that general problem, then this problem, this is an instance of that problem. Am I being clear?
Yeah, but I forgot that equals bracket existed after so many years of it not existing.
Wow.
I've not been using it. I don't see the point of using the local parser with this because it's not going to be fast anyway, right?
Yeah,
What?
we have to build a new pathway to get this to resolve.
The question is whether this does what control equal does or not. Currently, it's documented to do what control equal does.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
there's a small glitchicoid then. Insofar as
can-
the local
yeah,
parser, we're not using local parser
I
except
can
when
write
it's a-
around that in the documentation.
But also, for goodness sake, guys, if the local parser does something different from the main parser, then it's a bug, basically.
right, that's the point
shouldn't
I
be
was just
using
making.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think this should use the local parser particularly. Why would it? It's never being used for cases, you know.
I'm inclined to agree.
Okay, it's easy
And
enough to
it
disable
definitely
this.
makes everything easier. So
Fine. Yeah, I agree.
There's no need to look at extras. It was just kind of an itemization of the things that
All
we've
right,
already
so
looked at.
let's go through this again. First point, we really need to home in on whether this is going to work as soon as possible and what the heuristics are for when we use it. If we do the heuristic right now of it only does it when there's a leading number, Jeremy, can you comment on this, please? Does that make sense to you, or is there some other case where you think we should do it? Use the local parser, that is.
I could believe if it starts with a function name or something like that as well.
No, we're not doing it for math. It's
We're
too
not
dangerous.
doing. We're not doing.
We're not doing it for math. I don't
Even
see any
that
point.
you didn't like that plot example for.
No, I don't care.
Oh.
Nobody's ever going to do it.
Huh.
Nobody's doing that.
Okay.
Nobody's doing that. Nobody wants to do that. Why would you do that? I mean, you're using our, using our desktop product. You're not going to type that kind of thing. I don't think. I don't think anybody is doing that.
People transitioning from Wolfram Alpha Notebook Edition might do that sort of thing.
Maybe. All two of them, I think. I just don't believe that's the thing people are going to want to do. And it's too dangerous to mess up, something which has worked nicely for years for the sake of that cute, the three cute cases that work.
Mm.
I just don't see it. I'm sorry, I just don't even close to see it. I mean, we can ask around whether people think there are use cases for this. I don't see them. And I think we should restrict it to units for this version at least. Is there anything else where we think we might use it? Because again, this math stuff, again, for tabular, it makes sense. For something where it's in bulk, it makes sense. But otherwise, I just don't see it. I don't see that it's, if it gets it all complicated, I wonder whether I can invent an example where I can write some word out in, is there a name of an animal that begins with a function name?
I mean, I certainly tend to agree with you that of what's been implemented in the local parser, I think only quantities are interesting.
Yeah, I think those are very interesting.
There are other useful things that control equal does, but they're not implemented in the local parser yet. So
yeah.
This may have already been answered, but is date and time not in there?
that's a good question.
That's nice.
Well, it did it.
I would use that, I must say.
Yeah,
It
I would
started
too.
with a number.
Why did that go beep? That just beeped.
Does something like
Look,
I see.
look, it crashed.
That's interesting.
so does something like 2 Sundays ago work?
I doubt it. But okay, guys, can you test this case, please? do it again. Okay, so it got that locally. I press the wolf, and that time it worked. But so mark that recording point, Glory, please. Go look at what we did.
Okay, got it.
However, I will point out one of the nice things about having this running in a separate kernel is that kernel did not crash. And so all of these with your newly relaunched local are working quickly.
Yes.
And John, 2 Sundays ago did work for me.
Okay. But look, having dates work might be a possibility. But I mean, we can also just take things. I don't know. Somebody's got to do testing of this. I don't know. Right? I don't know if there are corner cases that are going to be horrible. So can we please get testing to start? And okay, we got 2 candidates right now. Units, 3 candidates. Units, dates, and math. Is there anything else? I mean, presumably, Noriko, can you speak up, please? What is in the local parser? What could it conceivably do?
So most of the typical grammars can do.
I'm sorry, which grammars? What?
TP for grammars.
Yeah, but what
Different-
domains? What
Oh,
types
most
of
of the
output?
math domain, like integral, plot, sum, stuff like that. Most of the math related domains. Like solve, integral, plot.
Okay, but those are not useful to us, I think. I don't see a use case for those. I mean, that's lovely, but I don't see a use case. What about other any entity parsers?
The plan for those is to be able to add those as packlets, although we're still working on that build system and so on. There have been build bugs and so on. But as we've been talking, I've been thinking that we should at least put in some subset of, you know, the countries, cities, that sort of thing.
Maybe. I mean, not if it isn't reliable. I mean,
exactly.
That's
That's the
not
concern.
worth it.
Is if we did that but not building
It's
data,
not
then
obvious.
we still have
It's not obvious that this is worthwhile. Okay, it's really not obvious that this is a good idea at this point. I mean, we've been hoping for this for 10 years, and I'm not sure it's going to work in the near term. Except in this one case. So, I mean, let's enumerate the cases and let's please get really solid testing done. And Stefan is not in this meeting, so we'll need to communicate that to him. Is that something you guys can do? Okay.
I can act as a go-between between the Wolfram Alpha folks and the QA folks.
Okay, we can finish the design review portion of this. We've got some other administrative things to go over. So bye to everybody on the live stream.